Good evening, everybody. I'm Alessandro, and today I'm going to talk about my work at faculty on uplift modeling for clinical trials. So clinical trials are the long and complex process that brings every drug from the lab bench to the market. Billions of dollars are invested into this process every year, and on average, out of 10 drugs that enter the clinical trial process, only one actually gets commercialized at the end. The cost is therefore huge in economic terms because the biggest part of this investment goes towards drugs that never gets used on patients ultimately. However, there's a huge human cost to this because the patients and the families that agree to join these clinical trials don't really have any other alternative, and this is the last glimmer of hope that they have that can change their life. Also, of these 90% of drugs that gets rejected from the clinical trials process, there might be some drugs that actually can be life-changing for some small groups of people that we can't really identify with clinical trials. So this was my question. Can we use machine learning to get more out of these inconclusive clinical trials? And also, can we use it to identify groups of patients where these drugs actually were beneficial? So to do this, I looked at these machine learning models called uplift models. And for example, if you imagine that we have a group of patients and we administer them the same drug, we would have some of them where the drug is not really giving any benefit, either because the patient would just recover by themselves or because the drug is just not having any effect. For some of them, there will be a negative impact because of toxicity or side effects, for example. However, among all of these, it might be very hard to actually identify the ones that we want to target, which are the ones where we have a positive effect. And this is what uplift models are very good at identifying. So during my work, I built this web application that allows us to apply uplift modeling to clinical trial data sets. For these specific examples, I used a randomized clinical trial in chemotherapy for colon cancer. And within the application, you can navigate a bit the original study. You can see what kind of parameters were used. And you can also see the outcome of that original study, which unfortunately was inconclusive because the survival of the patient that took the drug was not different from the ones that took the placebo control. As you can see here from the red curve overlapping almost perfectly with the gray curve. However, when I applied uplift model on this uplift model with this set, I could find a group of patients where this drug was actually beneficial and improved their life expectancy significantly, as you can see here from the red curve rising above the gray curve. And this is very great and promising. However, because we're dealing with patients and their medications, we need to make sure we really understand deeply how this model works, how it makes its decisions. So to do this, I applied several explainability methods to my model. And for example, here, I extracted the typical profile of patients that gets assigned the highest probability to get a benefit out of this drug. And for example, here you can see two of them, and we can see that these patients fall in a specific age range and have a small number of lymph nodes where the cancer was detected, as you can see here from the graph called nodes. And this is very good if you want to start to understand at the population level how the decisions are made by this model. But also you can go one step further. You can go patient by patient at a personalized level and see which are the parameters that the model has taken into consideration to make its decision. As you can see here for this particular patient, we can see that there are two features that contributed positively to have a positive benefit from taking this drug, and one that actually contributed negatively. So, in conclusion, I used uplift models to get valuable insights from inconclusive clinical trials, and also I found hidden subset of patients where this therapy was actually beneficial despite the trial being inconclusive. And also I made this model easily interpretable down to the individual patient level. And using this approach, in the future we may be able to guide the design of new clinical trials that can have a much higher chance of success. Thank you.